Hi everybody, welcome back to Learn English with me. So today I'm gonna tell you a story, a funny story, and I'll try to tell you in both Burmese and English, but mostly in English. But hopefully while you're listening to my story, you'll be able to learn some new expressions. Okay, so this happened to me about 3 weeks ago when I was flying back from the States to Japan. So I was at the airport, and it was a smaller airport, not like the usual big airports that I fly back from. This time around, I flew back from San Diego, and it's a quieter airport, and there aren't a lot of flights going back and forth. It was also a weekday, so decided that it would be 2 hours would be sufficient for me to get checked in and everything and board the flight. Got to the airport, was waiting in the queue for my turn to check in. Very short queue. I was the second person. My turn came, and there I was standing at the counter, handed over my passport to the lady. We had a really, brief chit chat. Hi, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. She also, oh, by the way, did not know where Myanmar was, so told her where Myanmar was. That was a good thing. Anyway, she was confused between Myanmar and Malaysia. Anyhow, she, was talking to me and started typing in, doing her usual things, and I'm just standing there waiting. 5 minutes passed, and then 10 minutes passed, and then 15 minutes passed, and then she's looking increasingly worried. She's looking confused and just frustrated altogether. Kept pressing some buttons, and she kept looking at me, my passport, looking at me, my passport, her computer screen. So I was like, maybe I should ask her something. Maybe I can help her. So I had my resident card out, my Japanese resident card. For Japan, you need to show that you're able to enter Japan legally, either with a visa, or if you're a person who works here, like myself, you need to show a resident card. So I had my resident card out because that's always a procedure. You guys, this is not my first rodeo, okay? Like, I've traveled back and forth from the States to Japan for quite a number of times, so I know the procedure. So I had my resident card out, and I was chill, and she looked confused. So I was like, do you need to see another identification? Like, I've got a resident card because Japan gives us resident cards, blah, blah, blah. So she's like, yeah, sure, that would help, I think. So she looked at the resident card, and she kind of like continued tapping, but the confusion and the worry on her face were not fading away. So I said, hey, is there something wrong? And that's when she told me, so the your names are transposed on the ticket and your passport. They're not the same. So the system thinks that you're not the same person, and they are saying that I'm not allowed to board you, that you're not allowed to check in because you're not the same person. So of course, quite worrying. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, like this has happened before. Burmese people don't usually have surnames, and we usually break down the syllables of our names apart. Like first name, the first word would become our first name, and the last part of our name would become the surnames. That's how we, fill forms whenever we go abroad and things like that. And so she's listening to me, she's like listening intently, and she said, like, that's really good information to know, but it's really not helping you at this moment because you're still not considered the same person who bought the ticket, so you're not going to be able to board the plane. So at that point, it was already about 35 minutes. So ကျမဒီလေမျက်မောတက်လို့မရပါဆိုနာမည်ကပြောင်းပြန်ဖြစ်နေပါတော့ transpose ဆိုတော့နာမည်တွေကအဲ့လိုအစင်လိုက်မဖြစ်နေပဲနဲ့နာမည် jumble ဖြစ်နေတာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့ကျမတို့မြန်မာလူမျိုးတွေက first name last name ရှိတဲ့လူနည်းတယ်အဲ့တော့ကျမနာမည်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်စာလုံး3လုံးရှိတယ်အဲ့3လုံးကကျမပထမတစ်လုံးကမေကကျမရဲ့first name ပေါ့နော်ကျန်တဲ့နှလုံးကကျမ surname အနေနဲ့အမြဲတမ်းထည့်တာ or the cut legislation through system but modi bidina maria order ya bono order mea and apago yaudabi she napa na long she yauded so the cut legislation limian bore pomada keked the choluria the chu system or flexible ဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့နော်တချို့ system တွေအဲ့ဒါဆိုလို့ရှင်သိပြီးပြဿနာမတက်ဘူးတချို့ system တွေ just flexible မဖြစ်လို့ရှင် airport မှာစောင့်ရတဲ့အချိန်အတော်ကြီးကြာတယ် so I was worried but at the same time I was like well this has happened before it's going to be okay but time is you know of a bit of a concern because at that point I had only like 1.5 hours left the night kwebe january pono limian bo board lo po ne ba ne solution so a chain ne ro cut ne bi so it was actually like cutting it fine means like a chain jan ne pono ne a chain la tege o ti ti cha cha ne ne li be jan no di ta po pi ro da ja ne me solution limian bo tat nai ma ma hot do cutting it fine cutting it fine ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အင်စာထပ်တာရိုဒါမို့လို့ရှိရင်အလုပ်လုပ်တာနောက်ဆုံးအချိန်မှာအလုပ်တာအဲ့လို due date ရောက်ခါနီးမှာလုပ်တာမျိုးဆိုလို့ရှိရင် you can say that you're cutting it fine okay so if you waited until the very last minute to study for an exam you're cutting it fine right ဒါမှမဟုတ်လို့ရှိရင်ချိန်ထားတဲ့အချိန်4နာရီဒါမှမဟုတ်အိမ်ကနေပြီးတော့3နာရီ50မှာထွက်တယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင် you're cutting it fine right so that's the expression that you can use when you're about to be late now solution so I was feeling a little bit anxious at that point but I was thinking like it's all going to resolve on its own but I was wrong because like it was around 40 to 45 minutes already and nothing was happening and she kind of said that the only way to get around it is if I bought like another ticket and then they'll make sure that the name is in the right order so I'll be able to get on the plane but it might not be this plane it might be the next day or the following day they don't know what's going to happen I cannot buy the ticket there at the counter either I have to like you know go to another office and do all of that just forgo this flight is basically what they're saying so I was like no I'm not going to forgo this flight I paid a lot of money for this flight this is a perfectly good ticket I know that I am the person who bought the ticket I have the credit card receipt I have my passport I have my resident card there's no reason for you to not allow me to board the plane and if I can enter the US with my transposed name then it should be easy enough for me to leave the US and enter Japan perfectly legally right so you have to be firm you have to stand your ground so တော့ကိုယ့်ရဲ့ကိုမှန်နေဆိုတော့ပြောနိုင်ဖို့လို့ပေါ့နော်လိုအပ်တယ်သူများကပြောနေတာကြောင့်မလို့အားလျှော့လိုက်ပြီးတော့သူများလောက်ခိုင်းတာကိုလိုက်လောက်တာမဟုတ်ပေါ့နော် you have to stand your ground you have to be firm ဒါကိုမှန်နေဆိုတော့ကိုသိတယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ရေးချင်းပြောနိုင်ရမယ်ပေါ့နော် you have to stand your ground so I stood my ground and then I just like told her like call somebody like above her so that they can solve the problem not that I think that you know she's incompetent but clearly there must be somebody who must know what to do about this situation so she's like right I'll call them so she was talking on the phone and then while she was on the phone 2 police officers were like walking towards my check-in counter and I was like my heart dropped I was like oh my god they're actual police officers she's called the police on me yeah call like so I was in my like apocalyptic thinking like oh my god this is how I will get arrested at the airport in the US even though I have a valid passport and valid visa and I'm not even overstaying you know all sorts of like negative thinking just like were playing in my mind and then turned out they weren't there for me they were not there for me so like there was a man in handcuffs so the guy was actually like really like friendly he was like talking to the police officers he was chit-chatting with them like their pals so the police officer so the police officer one of the police officers said to the lady like how do we check him in and then he got checked in he breezed through the check-in like it took like literally 2 minutes so the 2 မိနစ်လောက်နဲ့ check-in counter နဲ့ရွှေ့ဆိုပြီးဝင်သွားပြီးကျမကတော့အနောက်ဘက်မှာ45မိနစ်လောက်ချွေးတွေကြပြီးတော့အပူပင်နေနဲ့ကြံခဲ့ရပေါ့နော် so I looked at the lady and I was like that guy literally just breezed through the check-in and I'm still stuck here and he's got handcuffs. He's in handcuffs. And then she's like, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. And at that point, it was about an hour already. တနာရီလောက်ရှိနေပြီပေါ့နော်။အဲ့ဒီအချိန်မှာကျမနောက်ကွယ်ကနေပြီးတော့အဲ့လက်ထိတ်ခတ်ထားတဲ့သူလည်း pass through ဖြစ်သွားတယ်။ခွေးလေးတွေနဲ့လာတဲ့လူတွေလည်း pass through ဖြစ်သွားတယ်။ကျမတယောက်တည်းပဲကြံခဲ့တာ။ So I was waiting there and at that point I was like getting really anxious because I was thinking like this is gonna be, you know, cutting it really fine now. Like we're not gonna make it if I don't get through because the airport is a smaller airport, but the security check is pretty long, you know. It's not like a fast queue, like there are just many flights, right? So I was getting super anxious at that point. And then just as I was about to like give up and think like the alternatives, a Japanese manager came. I know she's Japanese because she's got a Japanese name and she was speaking Japanese to me. And then she said, hey, I'm gonna have to ask you a serious question. They're gonna need to know that I am the person that I say I am. So just look me in the eye and tell me you are the person on this passport. And I said, yes, I am. That's what I've been telling all along. And she's like, okay, right. Done. And then she stamped everything. She got me through with a special like priority security checkup. So I got through the fast track lane. I didn't have to wait in the queue. And then just as I left the security check-in, I didn't even have time to like put my shoes back on. I just literally grabbed my shoes, got my bag, and then ran to the gate because the gate was quite far too. So I ran to the gate and I got to the gate and everybody was boarding. There were like maybe like 3 people left at the gate after me. So I really made it by the skin of my teeth. I made it onto the plane by the skin of my teeth. The skin of my teeth so တကယ်ကိုနီးနီးကက်ကက်လေးပေါ့နော်တကယ်ကိုဒီတမနဲ့တနောက်ကြမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှင်လေးမြမို့တက်လို့ရမှာမဟုတ်တော့ I made it by the skin of my teeth on the plane. So yeah. So that's what happened to me on this flight. I'm really happy to be back. I'm happy to be making this video because if I were still stuck in the States, I'll probably be making a different kind of video. Anyway, it's really good to just be, go to the airport, even if the airport is not busy, just be there way ahead, just so that there are some extra time, buffer time for you if you run into any kind of problems or any issues. So, yes, that was my little story and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave the comment in the comment section.